Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this talk about the vaquita porpoise. My name is Laura, and I'm co-founder and director of Conservation Chat UK. We organise and host events and create content where the conservation of wildlife and the environment are at the heart. And you can join in the conversation by following our social media and checking out our website. We'll leave details of these at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the vaquita porpoise. So if you didn't already know, the vaquita porpoise is the smallest cetacean in the world and falls into the family Cetacean, which includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. And the vaquita's Latin name is Phocoena sinus, and the species is currently critically endangered according to the IUCN. And this is the most recent update as of 2017. So as I said before, these are incredibly small cetaceans and weigh between 40 to 50 kilograms. They grow to be about 1.5 meters in length, and like most porpoises, males are actually slightly smaller. They lack a beak, as seen on other cetacean species such as dolphins, and have spade-like teeth. And as you can see in these images, on the right-hand image, they have really clear, distinctive facial markings with a black ring around each eye, almost like eyeshadow or mascara. They also have curved black markings around their mouth, and these markings make the vaquita look like they're smiling. So like other porpoises, they use sonar to communicate and hunt, and they feed on a diet of small fish and squid, and they're usually seen in pairs or pairs with one calf. So let's take a little look at the life cycle of a porpoise, or of the vaquita porpoise specifically. So very little is known about the vaquita's life cycle. They're quite a mysterious species, but from what we do know, vaquitas have a relatively short lifespan of approximately 20 years. It's believed that sexual maturity is between 3 and 6 years old, and females give birth approximately every 2 years. So this is a factor making them particularly vulnerable, as they can only produce one calf every 2 years, unlike other porpoises, which produce every year. And breeding usually takes place between April and May, and after a long 10 to 11 month gestation period, they give birth in March and April. So they give birth to a single calf, which weighs around 8 kilos and reaches a length of about 70 centimeters when born. And this small size means that calves are vulnerable, especially to predators and poor sea conditions. And the length of time before sexual maturity, along with low birth rates and long gestation, makes it challenging for this species to re-establish their populations. The vaquita has a small range limited to the Sea of Cortez, which is the upper Gulf of California. Vaquitas are endemic to the Sea of Cortez, so this means that they're found exclusively in this area and you won't find them anywhere else in the world. This makes them even more vulnerable. So as you can see from the map, this is the area above the islands and to the left in the upper part of the Gulf of California. So the known range is approximately 3,000 kilometers squared. This is a small range. This is the smallest range of all cetaceans, and again, this highlights how vulnerable this species is. There's also some concern that this could lead to inbreeding, although the population is so small anyway, this could be inevitable. So now I just want to move on to some threats. And there are many threats to cetaceans across the globe, of which I could divulge now, but I won't. So we're speaking specifically about the vaquita right now. So I'm going to focus mainly on gill nets. These nets can span huge areas of water, creating a dangerous wall of silent netting. And gill nets are non-discriminant, meaning that they do not target specific species. So this means that whatever species swims into the net and gets caught falls victim to the net. So this could be sea turtles, sharks, rays, and even seabirds who dive into the water to fish. This is why they're such a huge threat to the tiny vaquita, and gill nets are almost incredibly difficult to see in the water because they're so fine. So gill nets were petitioned to be banned in the Sea of Cortez in 2017, and this petition did succeed, but it's likely that illegal gill net fishing is still taking place. So since this ban, the Mexican Fishing Authority has actually refused to support it, and has refused to allow permits for alternative fishing gear for fishers to use, which obviously causes some issues with this ban. And additionally, once gill nets were banned, it's inevitable that another fishing method would reign. And in this case, trawling was this method. So I'm not going to go into this in detail, but trawl fishing is another non-discriminate fishing method, and it's highly destructive to the sea floor, and it often damages and or displaces ecosystems. So it's not a better option. So very closely linked, or actually directly linked to the gill nets, is the illegal taturba trade. So the taturba is another species that has fallen victim to overfishing and has in fact led to the demise of the vaquita directly. So as you can see in the image, taturba are large fish and are a similar size to the vaquita. The fishing of the taturba was banned in 1975, but since then illegal gill nets have been used to take this species from the Sea of Cortez. This species is particularly popular and sought after for its swim bladder, and there have been reports of Mexican fishers receiving $4,000 per pound of swim bladder. So this amount of money is too much to pass up for those living in poverty in Mexico. And in comparison, the price of shrimp is much lower at $9 per pound. So you can see how tempting this trade can be to those in poverty. And the dried seafood is smuggled, much like ivory and rhino horn would be, and is sold on the multi-billion-dollar black market in China. And the bladders are dried and used in Chinese traditional medicine. However, much like rhino horn and other animal products, there is no scientific proof that these items actually have medicinal properties. So there are several organisations and campaigns working hard to protect the vaquita, and who also work closely with the Mexican government. However, the Mexican government has been criticised in the past for forming conservation methods on inadequate information, which are designed to fail. So they were never going to work in the first place. For example, a fishing ban was implemented in the core area of the Sea of Cortez to protect the vaquita, when in fact, the vaquita is rarely sighted in this area, therefore making it useless. So I just want to talk you through these 3 zones which were implemented as protected areas in the Sea of Cortez. The green line represents the border of the Biosphere Reserve, which was implemented in 1993. The yellow border represents the Vaquita Refuge, and the orange border represents the gill net exclusion zone. Now, we know that marine protected areas do work, but only if they are properly enforced. This protected zone is in fact classed as a paper park. So this means that it's a marine protected area on paper, but there are actually no government officials policing the area and no real consequences for breaking the proposed rules of that area, deeming them practically useless. So here I'm going to do, it's quite a long table, but it's a really good example of the conservation of the vaquita over the years. So I'm just going to talk you through these next 2 slides. So in 1940, the first recorded entanglement of vaquitas in gill nets happened. The taturba resources were in decline, resulting in the increased use of artisanal gill nets and shrimp trawling. These are the main threats to vaquitas. So as I mentioned before, trawling became the method of choice for fishing once gill nets were banned, but they still trawl up vaquitas. Although vaquitas were not known by science at this time, the current threats still existed within the area. And taturba fisheries were at the root of fishing communities, with seaside fishing camps forming specifically to harvest taturba swim bladders for the Chinese market. So moving on to 1950s, the vaquita was first discovered by scientists. So it was officially discovered on record by scientists. A beach skull was found on a beach in the north of Punta San Felipe in Baja California, Mexico. And vaquita mortality by gill nets has been documented since at least the 1950s. In the 1970s, we saw the cease of trade of the taturba meat, and it wasn't shipped and sold in the USA. In 1975, the taturba fisheries were officially closed due to their endangered status. 1980s, the demise of the vaquita was recognised. However, very little efforts were made by government officials to implement conservation measures. In 1986 up to 1988, aerial surveys were conducted to estimate the vaquita population by Barlow, Silva and Geridetti, who concluded a population decline of 18% per year. In 1992, the Mexican 100 peso commemorative coin shows early political support of vaquita conservation, and I'd encourage you all to just type that up in Google and have a look at that coin. In 1993, the first fishing restrictions to protect the vaquita were implemented by establishing the Biosphere Reserve. However, this has very little enforcement, as I mentioned before. In 1994, the Mexican government recognized the vaquita as a species in danger of extinction. So this is, if you look at the timeline, this is a long time after the vaquita was first discovered, and they were already being caught by that point. In 1995 to 2004, 22 vaquitas were reported dead by fishers and government field personnel, and 11 carcasses were recovered. The vaquita was declared as critically endangered by the IUCN Red List between this time. In 1996, acoustic monitoring was carried out for 10 years of the vaquita echolocation clicks, which revealed a population decline of 8.7% per year during this period, and the population count of 567 vaquitas with a mortality rate of 39 to 84 per year, which is a lot considering the population is small anyway. In 1997 to 2007, the Vaquita Refuge, an 1,800 square mile of core vaquita habitat, was established, which includes a gillnet ban within the zone. In 2006, the extinction of the Bargy river dolphin, a species you may have heard of before, was announced, making the vaquita the most endangered cetacean in the world. In 2007, vaquita population estimated at 150 individuals. In 2008, Pace Vaquita was implemented as the first effort by the Mexican government to prevent vaquita extinction. So Pace Vaquita sought to preserve the vaquita by compensating fishermen for voluntarily switching to vaquita-safe fishing methods, temporarily reducing fishing efforts, or permanently quitting fishing. Vaquita population estimated at 245 individuals during this year. 2012, Pace Vaquita has been operating for 3 years, and the Mexican Minister of Environment announced that the vaquita was on the path to recovery. Acceleration up to turbo swim bladder smuggling, captive to turbo released, resulting in a population boom, but this was recognized by the cartel as a business opportunity. So there's a lot of corruption that surrounds the business of Taturba, ultimately and directly affecting the vaquita. In 2013, the vaquita population is estimated at 200 to 245 individuals. In 2014, the vaquita population is down to 97 individuals. In 2015, fewer than 59 individual vaquitas remain. The gillnet exclusion zone was implemented. The Sea Shepherd began to actively patrol for illegal gillnets in the vaquita's natural range. So we're actually seeing some activism here. And in 2016, International Save the Vaquita Day was established by Viva Vaquita. So I'd highly encourage you guys to go and check out the website for Viva Vaquita as well. They're a really good campaign. And vaquita population estimated at only 30 individuals. So we've dropped massively in this timeline. 2017, Dr. Tom Jefferson began the photo identification of the vaquita and named individuals such as Anna. Anna was reported in 2017 and 18, highlighting the importance of this research. And we know that dorsal fin identification and photography of cetaceans as a conservation method is highly proven to work and be useful to help with our efforts in conservation. Also in 2017, we've got the permanent gillnet ban being implemented. Vaquita CPR attempt to rescue wild vaquitas to place in a sea sanctuary pen. This was abandoned after one female died and others were showing signs of stress. So porpoises, as a kind of a family within the family cetacean, are incredibly easily stressed. So any kind of human interaction, whether that be boat or actual physical touch, anything like that is going to be highly stressful to these porpoises. So it's really important that we find a method of conservation that's preventative rather than having to resort to this kind of thing. And also in 2017, vaquita population estimated at only 18 individuals, which is really heartbreaking. And in 2018, the Mexican fishing authorities announced, after years of refusal, that they will permit new vaquita safe and alternative fishing gear. However, permits are not currently issued. So that's a little look at the timeline of the conservation of the vaquita. So that brings us to the end of this short presentation. It was a nice, short, sweet and punchy kind of overview of the vaquita and the conservation methods that have been put in place and kind of the threats that really threaten this species. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel for more content about animal conservation and wildlife related videos, and follow our social media as depicted on the screen. So we've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also make sure to head over to our website. We've got loads of free resources over there. We've got podcasts, and we've got interactive events that you can work with. And thank you very much for joining us, and make sure to subscribe and give us a like, and keep up to date with all of our upcoming events and webinars and courses. Thank you very much for listening.